Yes, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Classified. September is about to begin, and the trade period, well, as you're about to find out, it has already started. Let's welcome our star-studded panel. We begin with one of the finest journos in the country, Damien Barrett. Damo, great to have you.
Good evening, Sam.
The man with all the medals, the superstar cat, Jimmy Bartell. Welcome, James.
Evening, Sam.
And the 12-time leading goal kicker, the Essendon Football Club goal-kicking legend, Matthew Lord. Lordo, great to have you.
Thanks,
as always.
Sam. Thank you.
Now, Sam, Tom De Koning, is he a saint yet?
Technically not right now, but he will be one. Damo, he has informed people around him that he will be joining the St Kilda Football Club, and he will officially tell that to Carlton during his exit meeting on Wednesday. The Blues have exit meetings starting tomorrow, going throughout the week. His individual one is on Wednesday, and he will inform Carlton that he will be joining the St Kilda Football Club on not a 7-year deal, but an 8-year deal in one of the biggest deals in free agency history.
It's significant, isn't it? Because it then also brings to a head the situation around Rowan Marshall, for starters, who has wanted to see officially what is happening in this space, and the lack of communication, as I've had it put to me, from the Saints to him about what that means for him and the offers that he's clearly got, Lordo, beyond the 2027 contract he's got as a Saint.
Do you think he'll be going to Geelong, Damo?
I feel there's a conversation to be had around all that, yeah. Again, it's up to the Saints now to sell to him how it looks for him with Tom De Koning there. But there are offers, and other clubs have seized upon this opportunity. He's got a decision to make himself. Contracted for 2 more years, but there is interest outside.
It makes a lot of sense. Reece Stanley's been a warrior for Geelong, but for Rowan Marshall to come in and play for Geelong, maybe for the last 3 or 4, 5 years of his career, makes a lot of sense. And just on the Tom De Koning deal, will he ever hit $2 million in that 8-year deal?
Well, it'll be an average of 1.7. I'm not sure
years.
at what point it'll be front or back ended. I assume one of those contracts, one of those years in the contract, Jimmy, will hit 2 years at some point. Your reaction, and to Damo's follow-up, if it was to be De Koning in, Marshall out, but given that they're not having to give anything for De Koning, how big a win for that is the Saints? Or how much do they improve, do you think?
Oh, they get a pretty athletic ruckman who's excellent in the centre bounce, but I think that's selling Rowan Marshall short. Yep. And so I can understand why he'd explore his options elsewhere. When you even looked at Carlton, they were reluctant to play Pitnet and De Koning. I know they tried it a number of times, and that's what you'd be asking Rowan Marshall to do, and probably asking Rowan Marshall to play more forward than De Koning, because Marshall has better craft as a forward than De Koning. So I'd be, if I'm Rowan Marshall in his camp, I'd be looking where I'm going to play number 1 ruck, which is best for him.
How do you see Tom De Koning, and how do you feel about it? Because I still look at his numbers, 6 goals for the season. A lot of pressure going to be on him. He averages about 3 to 4 marks a game, and his disposal can be poor at times. So how do you see the deal with what St Kilda's getting?
Well, you're paying for a lot of potential, and that is the case at the moment in AFL football. Our absolute best players aren't getting paid the best, and you can get paid more on potential. And he's got some serious room for improvement, which we hope he can do, because I want to see him do it. But he's got to improve his marking around the ground. Now, they've got to decide, are they going to play him like Darcy Cameron behind the ball, where he rolls back to centre-half back? Or are you going to ask him to push forward and actually impact the game by hitting the scoreboard? So he's still got plenty of room to grow in his game.
OK, plenty more coming up on the trade space in Footy Classified throughout the rest of the year. Let's talk about the Western Bulldogs, who were the sad Sunday story, it must be said, of round 24. So, Lloydy, on what side of the fence are you here? Because they've got Marcus Bontempelli, arguably the best player of the last 25 years. They've got Richards, who we know is a star this year. Darcy, I know Hugo Hagen's been injured. But how much of this fall from grace is on the coach, who they have re-signed, by the way?
I think it's got to fall on the coach. It always does when a season goes the way it's gone for the Western Bulldogs. You see their average defensively, and that's no secret to anybody. And I think what I love about finals, which we're about to come into, is you get exposed, your weaknesses get exposed on the biggest stage of all. And that was as close to a final as you'll get for the Western Bulldogs. And they were exposed so badly for the Fremantle Dockers for their weakness, which is defensively. So their defensive running as a midfield group and their defensive ability to stop the big key forwards on the day.
Yeah, I know that they'll zero in and talk about finding better defenders, but I think it's around team defence and structurally the way they set up all the personnel. Because I looked at their defence, and yes, they finished middle of the pack, but Freo we acknowledge is a good defensive unit. Over the course of the entire season, Freo only held the opposition to 5 less points. That's it, over the entire season. The Giants, we highlight how good their defensive group is, conceded 14 points more, and the Lions, 16 points less. So they're all pretty good sides, and you go through their losses. I am making excuses for Luke Beveridge here. But these are the top 8 sides losses: 6 points, 16, 10, 21, 14, 22, 10, 11, 15. So
a lot of losses though, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know it is, but
it's 7 losses out of those 9 games against those top 9 teams, Jimmy.
Clearly noted, but all I'm saying is don't blow it completely up. I don't think they're that far away. We highlighted they were without Bont for 6 weeks, Darcy for 2 months, barely any Treloar All-Australian. Ugelhagen and Waitman they'd planned for different reasons not being there. Jones dropped off. So structure and personnel, they can make adjustments, and this can change really quickly for the Dogs.
You talked about how you were a little bit worried about their defence, and you've said that throughout the year. The coach lamented as much post-game.
We haven't got a great pressure rating, and because of that aspect, we haven't been able to stifle the scoreability of the opposition. Definitely at times, the opposition key forwards have got a hold of us, so it is an area that we need to continue to focus on to improve and work with our current players who play there, and but perhaps look at whether or not there's an opportunity in the market there.
So here is the vision from the weekend where they were well beaten. 9 goals between Tracy, or 11 goals if you include Jackson, Tracy, Amos, Voss, and then Jackson. So look at this. Rory Lobb's not a number 1. So O'Donnell you give a tick to for he improved, but Lobb across as the season wore on. Buslinger just hasn't proven that he's up to AFL level, subbed out again. Buku Khamis couldn't hold his spot. Liam Jones was unfit, injured, fell out of favour. Gardner came in for 1 week and gone. So I asked the question, is it Jack Silvani or is it Jack Silvani plus?
Is that enough in your eyes to rectify what you're now observing and criticising?
No, I'm looking for the number 1. I think Silvani's still a number 2 or 3, so Silvani would be fantastic as a number 2, 3, but I'm still looking at who's their Barras or who's their battle that's coming in to take down the big dogs.
Their opponent on the weekend was aggressive, wasn't it, after quarter time? The way it played and scored 8 unanswered goals. They were aggressive during the week too. In his 6th season, Justin Longmuir has found need and good timings to get aggressive in his media conferences.
Things are shaping up that you'll have to win next week to get into the finals. How do you think the players will handle?
The pressure's on them as well, isn't it? Last time I checked, they've won 1 less game than us. Last time I checked, we're on the same amount of wins as Collingwood, who are sitting 4th.
Oh, I reckon it's absolute bullshit, to be honest. We all love him inside the 4 walls. He cops it so much for unnecessary reasons. They tell us to move the ball quicker. They tell you all these other things, but then we win 1 game. They're all over us. They love us, and then we lose 1 game, and then he's the worst coach in the AFL again. So it's a load of bullshit, and we love what he's doing, and couldn't ask for a better coach.
In some ways, this was arguably a missing link from the Dockers in the 6 years of Longmuir's coaching. He'd been reluctant to ever engage in that type of narrative and language and words outside of football, but it has worked with powerful effect this year, particularly in that game. It also happened earlier in the year when they took on Collingwood and won in a week in which he was also quite vocal. Yeah,
and I love the edge, and they've only been critiqued because we look at the talent they got on the park, and when they do play with aggression, not only defence but attack, they can put goals on the opposition. As you mentioned, 8 unanswered goals. They did that to the Dogs early in the year. So when they do speed up their ball movement a touch, I know we're critical of it, they're such a good side.
We'll move on to the Brisbane Lions. The reigning premiers was an epic encounter against the Hawks on Sunday night, wasn't it? Lloydo, your headline to start the show each and every week on Classified is that the Lions are the team to beat. Is that still the case in your eyes?
Oh, it's been a great fortnight for them. They're taking down Fremantle in Perth and then Hawthorn at the Gabba. So 2 big scalps heading into September. Their injuries do concern me a little bit compared to the team they're about to play in the first final in Geelong. So still really confident on Brisbane, but I get the feeling that whoever wins that first final against Geelong and Brisbane may well go on and win this premiership. So I love what Brisbane are doing. I still stand by it. But Geelong are the side. It's just the unknown with Geelong, Damo. It's just that everyone says, but who have they beaten? But, gee, they are travelling extremely well. So that's the only caveat, is what Geelong are doing in comparison to
Do you have a
Brisbane.
caveat on their goal kicking? Because it was an issue last year. There were 7 occasions where you saw Chris Fagan address the lack of quality goal kicking during the course of the home and away season last year. Didn't matter. They won the flag. It's already happened 4 times this year, and the most recent scoreline was 11 goals, 23 in that win against the Hawks.
0 goals, 9 in the third quarter wasn't a very good reward for what was a great effort. Kicked 3 goals, 7 in the third quarter, which probably hurt us. Our profile is really healthy other than accuracy. The rest of the game was at an acceptable standard for us outside of our kicking for goal. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we lost, because we were inaccurate in front of goals, and when we had momentum, we didn't hit the scoreboard as much as we should have. We'll take some learnings from the game, obviously. The main one will be take your opportunities in front of goal, which has been a thing I've had to talk about too often. We didn't take our shots, missed. It wasn't the conditions. We were all over them, we just couldn't kick it through the goals. The obvious one is we didn't kick straight. When you generate 31 shots on goal, you should win most games. The only part of our game that was below par was our kicking for goal. I've seen teams, have a bad night in front of goals and lose the game. We didn't do that.
As we saw, it didn't matter in the end when it came to the crunch in 2024 final series. Should get back Lachie Neale, could get back quite strongly Berry, and also Eric Hipwood at some stage of the final series. And they've had a lot of injuries. There's a few guys who won't be seen again this year, but some big names still to come back. And
people may ask, why haven't I mentioned Adelaide? Well, I just think the final is experience and being there and knocking on the door. I put big weight on that, where Geelong and Brisbane have continually been there.
You cooling on the Crows?
Not cooling on them, but I just have them third ranked behind the other two. Third ranked.
Even though they're first on the ladder. Okay, interesting stuff. They're not the only club that have their issues up forward, Jimmy, because the team that the Brisbane Lions defeated, Hawthorn, they've got some decisions to make out of finals as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of their midfield mix and getting the ball inside. Brisbane were excellent at actually, turning the football over in the front half, and so they rebounded really hard. I thought Amon and Impey tried really hard, and they tried to keep the tempo in the game by hands, but they lost a little bit of their structure, and that last kick going inside forward 50 at different times missed. They got it going early with Scholl, so they were able to actually break the bubble, but as the game wore on, Brisbane were able to sort of slow them down, or at least get a structure behind the footy, which allowed these long dump kicks in, which we know for the Lions the last few years. Harris Andrews, if the ball's in the air, Leicester's very good one-on-one defensively. So they played against a very good side who is looking to charge to a third grand final in a row. So they just need to get that connection piece. If they're going to play four tours, one or two of them at least got to present to the kicker.
Yeah, and they do need to get a little bit more out. Like Lewis hasn't quite found his feet, subbed out with was it a cork thigh or something like that. Chol, inconsistent, starts well, then completely falls out of the game. And Deer hasn't done enough either.
There's something so interesting that happened, Damo, just before the bounce last night, and that was a statement from the West Coast Eagles confirming one of the worst kept secrets in footy, and that is this man, Oscar Allen, their captain, not only wants out, but wants to join the reigning premiers, the Brisbane Lions. It's what a lot of us have been worried about for some time, Damo, and it begs the question if free agency really is broken.
Well, I think it's been broken since before it even started, Sam, with the compensation component to it. And while we're about to listen to what Alistair Clarkson says about it, now that he's coaching a bad team, having been the beneficiary of it as a good team at Hawthorn, when he got James Frawley across the line, you can see what he has been saying about it recently, and this does go back to its very origins a dozen years ago.
Free agency is another concept that's really been in for, I'm not sure, probably 10, 15 years now. Their initial intention was that, they'll go for the money. North Melbourne will pay them a stack of money and the player will come to North Melbourne because there's a big paycheck there. Very few players are coming to the lower clubs because of free agency. But that's why when people say, gee, you should be doing this a hell of a lot quicker, just want to tell the whole footy world it's pretty bloody hard.
Jimmy, we've seen this happen now a lot, and you can't say that Alistair Clarkson is incorrect in what he says there, but he had a choice to keep Ben Mackay as a free agent, and he chose to allow him to go to Essendon to get the lofty draft pick, as is now West Coast doing with Oscar Allen. They've got a choice to retain these players under this system. They just choose not to.
Yeah, that's restricted free agency. You can choose to match the deal, but clubs are down the bottom part of the ladder, who he's talking about, who can't get players in, are clearly in a different stage of where those players who are leaving want to be. So obviously, if you're in that 25 to 27 age bracket, you've served your time, if you will, there, and the pick is probably more beneficial at that stage for the club building. Of course, West Coast will get pick 2. 1 and 2 for them right now is probably sending him on a path further than what Oscar Allen is for the next 4 to 5 years.
He needs the pre-season of his life, Oscar Allen. So he was a fantastic player. That's why he got the captaincy, Sam, but he hasn't looked fit. It's not a fault of his own, but with his body letting him down. But I think going from the worst club to the best club, you'll see what training standards truly look like, and he needs to improve a lot himself to get back to the investment that they're putting into him.
It's the perfect risk, though, for the Lions, isn't it?
I think it is,
Costs you nothing. They've got the track record of fixing people like Joe Danaher.
Yeah, well, Sam Day's playing at the moment. They've got a guy like Payne who gets injured a lot, so I think he's a good fit for them.
Sam, the Demons have been in upheaval now for the best part of 2, maybe even 3 seasons. They're the only club at the moment and likely to be the only club looking for a new coach. But it's other issues also off the field that you're able to bring to light tonight?
Yeah, so some interesting changes ahead at Melbourne. So we know they're on the lookout for a new coach after sacking Simon Goodwin. We know that the Premiership Port Adelaide coach, who was one of his right-hand men, Mark Choco Williams, has left. Also can tell you tonight that there's a psychologist that's been there for the last 4 years, has resigned. He's going to stay on for the remainder of the season as in heading into the draft, but won't be there as of next year. So then look out for a new psych. I can also tell you tonight that the club is seriously considering a major upheaval of its footy department that could see the head of footy, who's now currently Alan Richardson, who's on the subcommittee to select a new coach, answer to a new person that would sit essentially above the entire footy department and answer directly to the CEO. Now, that could be a strategic role. If you look at what West Coast did at the end of last year, they actually did the same with Andrew McWalter coming in as the new coach. They gave John Worsfold essentially this head of strategy role, which encompasses football into it. So I think Paul Guerra, Damo, to answer your question, is considering major change across the whole club, and it could see Alan Richardson not be the senior person as head of football directive next year. That
wouldn't totally surprise, given the narrative that was going around Richardson just before the Goodwin sacking. I mean, he's clearly contracted for next year, and the new board, or the new look in the new board, has allowed him to be on this subcommittee. But yeah, he was totally invested with the Simon Goodwin time frame and ideology around, which has now been blown up.
So Sam, with all these movements in the football department, is it a chance to do something different, or is it pointing towards more instability at the Melbourne Football Club? Because we've heard the discussions around, who's actually taking charge of the chairmanship as far as different people in the executive. You still don't have a coach. Is it going to provide greater stability and they're trying to do something different, or is it still instability?
I think it's a great point that you've raised in that question, in that this is a club who at the start of last year preached the necessity for stability. But clearly that hasn't worked, Jimmy. So it's a little bit hard to criticise them on both ends, isn't it? We criticised them maybe last year for not changing enough. When they held on to Petrarca, they held on to Oliver, they held on to Goodwin. And now they're changing a whole lot really quickly. But to your point, it does potentially just speak to instability, doesn't it?
Yeah, in a way. But if they nail it and they're brave, and clearly they had some ideas and plans 12 months ago, they didn't go ahead with them, so they've acknowledged change and trying to make it work.
They've articulated through the incoming CEO, Paul Guerra, who you guys spoke to on 3AW over the weekend, what they want in the coach, and Max Gawn has also bought into this aspect as well.
We want experience and we want fit. We want to be that club that is consistently challenging, and to do that, we need the right game plan, we need the right coaching. Ultimately, if you've been in the system for a number of years and got that experience as an assistant coach, we're looking at you. If you've been a senior coach wanting to coach again, we're looking at you as well.
But the overarching theme that I can't get out of my head is we lose winnable games. I'd say we were completely out of Gold Coast, North Melbourne early in the year, and then Hawthorn late in the year, and the rest of the games we were in. Off the top of my head, I'm not good at maths. 20 games, we won 6. There's 14 winnable games we lost, which is pretty flattening. We got to learn how to win again.
They need someone really strong, like a really strong personality to be able to walk in there and speak to Clayton Oliver, Christian Petrarca, Jack Viney.
Who is it in your eyes?
Well, if it's not Nathan Buckley, say who's all the rage at the moment, I'm talking like, I don't know, someone who's been in the game for 20 years. That's how I'm seeing that.
Have you got a name or not sure yet?
I'm not sure yet of these young assistant coaches. If there's anybody that I know Adam Kingsley, for example.
You try and talk Ken Hinkley into reconsidering what he may be doing.
Well, I just feel like what they're going to be going into and the political nature of what that club has been, it's going to be a really tough job for whoever gets it.
Sizzling start on Footy Classified. Plenty more coming up on the other side of the break as well, including the Black Hole Suns. Surely, Dimmer's men don't fluff their lines again in 2025. Not much to crow about as Adelaide move on from the Rankine controversy with an unconvincing win over North Melbourne. And the Pies, they win the game, but can they win the flag without two of their stars? We'll discuss that and a whole lot more next on Footy Classified. Welcome back to Footy Classified. I think so many of us, Lloydy, went into the weekend thinking, no, surely they couldn't drop this one against Port Adelaide. They did. It was the most Gold Coast performance ever, and the coach was savage after the game, as he should have been.
And that's Damien Hardwick. He was like that as a player, and he's been like that as a coach. That's why he's had so much success, because he's a winner, and he has been for most of his career. But unfortunately, it's the history of the Suns. has let them down, and this is what's gone on, where they just can't quite get there, and it's probably wearing on them a little bit. It's like someone in the 90s trying to make their first century, and they just can't quite get there because it weighs on them. So this is a new group.
This is year after year, though, under different coaches.
But they are better. I'd say they are better, and this is the best we've seen them, and they should turn up to the Gold Coast on Wednesday night and absolutely do a number on the Bombers and make the finals for the first time. But I do question this when Damien Hardwick a while back said, I've got 80% on my list here when he first got the job.
Yeah, it was his first press conference as coach.
Yeah, I'll ask, does he ask too much of the 20%, or is there only 20% that do enough? Because outside of this, the 20% club, I've got it at that Anderson, 93 coaches' votes, Rowell 88, Miller 58, Witts is outstanding, and Kings kicked 62 goals. But I feel they need more from others, or too much of the game is based around these guys.
Yeah, and Lloydy, I think if they do miss, which we don't expect them to lose...
Is there any chance they could lose?
Or you're saying them a chance. There's always a chance, of course, Damo. But I think what they'd do is if you did lose, it'd make some pretty rapid decisions on guys that you might be 50-50 on.
Are you actually sitting here saying that Essendon could beat Gold Coast on Wednesday? Are you saying it?
Well, everybody's a chance when they run out there. Essendon have been plucky, but surely Gold Coast are just mature enough to knock them out.
But are you saying they need to make decisions anyway? Or?
No, I think if they were indecisive about one or two, if they were to lose, I think they'd just go, no, like you're out.
And Lloydy, now that Josh Carr does get the keys officially to coach Port Adelaide, the team that beat the Suns on the weekend, he's been known to have that in his keeping for a year now, but he's been a senior assistant coach, head of the midfield for the club this year. What changes do you expect him to make, and what should he make?
Well, I'm not sure how attractive they are now. Wanganeen Miller didn't go in their way. I'm not sure how attractive they are as a football club. So what they go, so they're just going to be relying on the tried and true through the midfield. Georgiades as a forward. Their backs seem a little bit too thin for me. Had a few injuries, obviously, throughout the year as well. But
and a big unknown about Zach Butters beyond next year's contract.
Yeah, so I won't be tipping them to play finals next year. So it's a bit of a rebuilding time for Josh Carr.
We're a week on now, Damo, from the Izak Rankine ordeal. Has the club moved on quickly enough? It did drag on a long time, and now, of course, it's emerged that he's gone overseas to get away from it all.
Yeah, look, I think it was the AFL that dragged it on, or allowed it to be dragged on, I should say. It was a Sunday, I suppose, revelation of a Saturday incident, and these shots here are from Izak Rankine being on a plane to go to Rome. I personally don't have an issue with him taking off to go overseas in this period of time. I do have an issue with the AFL last week taking 5 days to resolve it and to reduce it from what we'd been conditioned to know to be a 5-week infringement down to 4 to give him the chance to play in the grand final should they lose their qualifying final against Collingwood and then win the 2 subsequent matches. But yeah, the travel component to it, Jimmy, I don't have an issue. I mean, he's allowed, I think, to go and spend his time the way he now chooses to do. So there will be...
Even when he doesn't address the playing group before he does it?
Yeah.
He doesn't actually speak to the club and then he goes away.
Look, Sam, I didn't like the fact that compelling medical grounds or medical submission was used to mitigate the sanction from 5 weeks to 4, but I don't back away from that being at play, and no one knows now how he's dealing with it. Now, it's secondary to the comment he made. I understand that, but
I'm sure he's going through a great deal of pain. I think we all feel for him to a degree for making.
So what's wrong with him going overseas?
Well, I think that something feels wrong about. It feels like he's been made to be a victim in this when he's not. Like, he's the one that did the right thing.
I don't look at it that way. I think
he was obviously very stressed. He didn't want to leave the house. Completely empathise with him as a human being. But if you don't address it with your footy club and you don't look your teammates in the eye, and then you jump on a plane to Europe to get away from it all, I'm not sure, Jimmy, that sends the greatest message.
So you're saying you'd want him at the club full time?
No, I think he should.
What if he did it before he left?
Yeah, I think he should have had to address the playing group.
Do we know that he hasn't?
And start was my understanding is that he didn't. Now, he's a young man. He's going through a great ordeal. Completely empathise with that on a human level. But if you make the mistake, you have to own up to it.
The only thing I'd say is when he comes back in a week, they're saying he's only going for a week, which does that fall before the final or like before their first final?
My understanding is he'll be back for when they play the Pies.
Just the circus of when he enters, just whatever it is, just the distraction for the Adelaide Crows. So that's what they've got to manage. I've got no issue with him going either. It's just how they manage him and not affecting the rest of the group on his return.
OK, the Magpies, Lordo, while you're running hot, they were able to win the game, but they lose some key personnel out of it, Jeremy Howe namely being the big one.
It is. Jimmy, I think that Collingwood can't afford to have lost Howe, and then what's going on with Bobby Hill. two keys to them. So some players, we saw West Coast win with no Nat Nui and Gaff. And
Shepherd was out as well in the same year.
Phenomenal what they did to go on and win, but I think they are so critical. A Norm Smith medalist, they've lost a lot since he's left the team, and Howe is critical to their defence. So few concerns for mine going into this final.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I'd like to see him tighten up a little bit. I think they'll take a lot out of the win, and I still think they're a red-hot chance, but they need to fix up a bit of their structure and transition defence around contest and stoppage. They're getting opened up through the forward side, so whether that structurally brings someone around the footy. But it's speed on ball when they get it back. They've got to just play with complete speed, off the line, shift the angles. Slow, long down the line method, I don't think is great for them with their three forwards, the tall ones, the Triple M's, McStay, Membry and, of course, Mycheck. I'd rather see them angling across the 50. So almost a rule where we're not kicking long down the line. I'd rather them hold possession, even if that means slow the game before they go quick.
And that's where Bobby Hill was so crucial, wasn't he? He was that point of difference, and he did force them to go across the line, as you say.
Yeah, he did. And I've seen in the last couple of games from Collingwood, they're willing to try and kick a barrel inside there, because at least it hits the ground, or dirty ball, as they like to call it, because then the game comes live. They don't have the ball intercepted against them being long down the line.
So what would you do, Jimmy? So would you, with no Jeremy Howe, who would you play, Charlie Dean, or would you send McStay back and potentially bring Mason Cox into the forward line? So this is what he has to think about. Like, Dean had to go because he got found out in defence. So how would you play it?
Well, I think it comes from actually the way they structure up through the middle of the ground, because Dean and Moore both got exposed. Yeah. So it wasn't just Charlie Dean. It was because the opposition was coming through the front of the contest. It was like what Luke Beveridge said with the Dogs. It's no pressure on the ball carrier. So it wouldn't have really mattered who they had standing next to Darcy Moore.
So who would you play against the Crows?
I'd still keep McStay, and if you can get away with playing Maynard taller or McStay as the second ruck, go with that group.
They got the big three. They got to stop. So that's where they probably can't.
Would you play Cox and risk it?
I would. Yeah.
They need greater pressure on the ball. So force long, high entries from the opposition.
Hey, the water cooler is next on Footy Classified. Toby Greene says a premiership team won't pay $2 million to just one player. Is he right? We'll talk about it next. But coming up after Footy Classified, it's the show that everyone is talking about. It's players. And tonight, Jesse Motlop, Bo McCreery and Archie Roberts. They join Felix von Hoff. Players absolutely flying on YouTube, on socials, and you can catch it on 9 right after Footy Classified. That's tonight.
I think $2 million is probably a bit of a stretch at the moment if you want to be a really good team. I can understand someone getting paid $2 million at the moment, but it's usually not a team that's going to be competing for a premiership.
Interesting stuff, Toby Greene, when asked about some of the monster contracts that are being thrown around. Won't contend for a premiership if you're spending that sort of money on one play. Is he right, Lloydo?
I think he makes a great point, and it's hard to argue with. I'm wrapped they kept Nasiah. They probably had to pay overs to keep him, and then they get TDK in the door too, so they're paying probably too much for two players. The only one I reckon I'd say that it worked pretty well was Wayne Carey. Back in the day where Wayne was getting paid $1 million, wasn't he?
Back in 1999.
What the salary cap was and what everyone else was getting paid, but they won 2 premierships, so they can tick it off. I admire Geelong on the flip side of this because they don't pay. Jimmy's been there, and I hate to ask what Jimmy was on when he's winning Norm Smiths and Brownlows and all those sorts of things.
What were you on when you were winning Norm Smiths and Brownlows?
I had 3 farms, 5 cut-line vouchers. That's what everyone's after, aren't they? But
how's the Torquay?
Yeah, how's the Torquay?
Like, as I said, like 800, like they don't overpay, do they, at Geelong?
No, they don't, because they've got a model. I know there's a couple of players who might be just slightly out of it, but your point's right. I took that interview, which I listened to with Toby Greene, as, because you've got the balance and you're pushing for a premiership. We often hear, Richmond spoke about it, Hawthorn spoke about it. You mentioned Geelong, that, players would sacrifice a bit just to keep playing in grand finals and premierships, and that was always put to myself at Geelong when Neil Balme was the footy manager. It was, well, you can all take a little bit more or max out, but you don't get to play with that guy and that guy and that guy on grand final day, which goes a long way to your winning premiership.
But this is a club that has now made, under Chris Scott's watch, 11 of the past 15 top 4 home and away season finishes. St Kilda is not in that luxury.
No, but they've been in a different position, and I think even Toby mentioned that. I think he acknowledged they're in a different position to some other clubs. They've got to make a statement or make a shift in the narrative, and I don't mind St Kilda doing it. Like Lloydy's saying, you've got to start attracting some players, look after your own. They've got a great young core coming through, and some of those are going to attract top dollar.
Can I be devil's advocate just for a moment and say that not only is it a very convenient and cheeky argument from Toby, I just don't think it's accurate, and his team has proven that. His team played in a grand final against Richmond when both those clubs literally took the model of paying their best players the most that they could, and everyone would fit in. Like, Cameron was on over 1.5. You had Cornelio and Kelly signed monster deals. Whitfield was on over $1 million. So was Green. Their opponents who won the flag did the same thing with Cochin, Martin, Rance, Rewalt, Lynch.
You're saying Jeremy Cameron at the Giants?
He was earning way over $1 million. Well over $1 million.
He wasn't well over $1 million at that time. No.
Well, that's what his contract was when he played in that grand final.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Their best 5 players were earning $1 million each. And we're now, nearly 7 years later and talking about $2 million. I just think the money has increased. I think the one has become 2 pretty quickly.
Yeah, look, it's the way it's spread out, and that's the art of list management. It can work different ways. I don't think Toby was having a sledge at St Kilda.
No, not a sledge at all.
No.
I'm just saying now that they're in a different... Now that the club is structuring their contracts perhaps differently when they last played in a grand final, maybe it looks through a different lens.
So what I would say, it is not ideal. Like, say, if Sam Darcy was to walk in and say, I am work... Because he's entitled to the biggest deal in the history of football. It's going to smash the Dogs at the end of the day, salary cap-wise. St Kilda, I know, don't have the players that the Dogs have, but Nick Dacos could turn up and say, I want 2. The next player's going to 2. Suddenly players are being spat out left, right and centre. St Kilda probably had to do it, but it's not ideal for them, salary cap-wise.
I tell you what, we know one thing, he's a star footballer, is Toby Greene, and he proved that again on the weekend. His coach, he was full of praise.
That's Toby, isn't it? There's not many players, really, that back-to-back can not only generate another 30 seconds for you to take that off the clock and then go back and knew that they were going to attack corridor and protected it for us. Absolutely brilliant. You know, that's what he does, honestly. But, you know, having said that, we don't want to rely on that, but it's nice when it does happen.
No, it was an absolute captain's knock from Toby Greene, and we always talk about the pre-finals bye, and the Giants this year might be one of the big beneficiaries of it. You look at some of the names on that list, another week rest or training into those guys. Brent Daniels played VFL, got through that. Jack Buckley, a lot of players at the Giants have declared Jake Stringer in. I think Toby Greene did it in his interview. Maybe Kelly and Hogan back as well. So
play all of them?
Is Hogan really okay? I keep hearing bad things, Jimmy, with that foot.
Fingers crossed he's okay, because the Giants are certainly a better side with him in it, being a Coleman medalist.
I know that, but are you going to play in the elimination final?
I think having the extra week will help him get ready, but we know Stringer will be back in, and they need Jack Buckley as well.
Strong quarter from you.
Thanks.
Lots more coming up on Footy Classified, including Lloydy Sledgehammer. It's next.
I do have a great respect for Luke Davies-Uniacke. We didn't have a great first quarter for North Melbourne over the weekend, so players not using their preferred hand. So this is a left-hand handball out to Paul Curtis. Tried to use his right, and then moments later he had the opportunity again to fire it out on his left hand to the player running on the outside, and didn't have the confidence to use that left hand. Looked to kick, another turnover. So it was a slow start for Luke Davies-Uniacke in that game, and then kicked it out on the full. Well, the Bombers, they've had a horror year, and they've got to tidy up things like this. I don't care who's playing, but here's Redmond and here's Lual, and they've just allowed 2 players pretty much to walk through. I'm talking, this is not training drill stuff. This is just non-competitive. Well, I don't care who's out there, they must get better. Tom Papley, this is Tom Papley, one of the best crummers the game's seen. You can't teach that. Just knowing your positioning to get front and square, front and centre. That's why the Blues will be going after him, you'd think, over the off-season. Well, Tim Kelly, not fit enough. Watch him on Errol Goulden. Does he really want to dig in? He spoke at the start of the year around, you know, my motivation levels for the game and things like that. But sometimes you just got to dig in yourself and work hard for your team to get better. Connor Nash, that's got to stay on the boundary. So you've got to give it air and you've got to keep it on the boundary. You do not hook the ball back in when Brisbane are as dangerous as any team in the comp. It's so central, so dangerous. Fletcher just comes in and kicks the goal. Well, the Doggies, they're not playing finals this year for moments like this. So you got Williams free, you got Lobb free. Lobb should be here, Williams should be up. Look at Erasmus. He's the winger, just standing all by himself, runs into an open goal. So it's moments like that which costs the Western Bulldogs playing in September, Sam.
It's a great edition of the Sledgehammer, which has been strong and stronger every single week. Matthew Lloyd. The West Coast Eagles haven't been strong. They finished bottom of the ladder with just 1 win, and fair to say Andrew McWalter knows the club has the job ahead of it.
We're going to have to deep dive review everything we do. Every part of our program we're going to do a deep dive into to try and learn what worked this year, what didn't, how we're going to improve it. We need to build into our whole program ways to compete and win and learn how to win. And it might be anything. It might be table tennis, it might be handball games at training, but we've got to learn to win.
I know they're just words, and I know we can't say too much, guys, on the back of a 1-win, 22-loss season, the worst ever, given that we're now playing 23 matches in a season. But I'm starting to worry about the narrative of Andrew McQualter, and I know he can't say much, but they're words that don't mean anything. I mean, trying to win at table tennis or...
What else can he say, though, Dave?
That's what I'm saying. But this is a guy who's now been in the system a year. It's got worse under his watch. That's not on him, clearly. That's an all-of-club issue. But how does he enter 2026 with any form of buoyancy about where this club is at, now that his co-captain has officially done what he's known for some time and also wants out?
I hear what you're saying, but their list is nuclear. Like, it's going to get worse.
This is my point.
So, but you're saying that you expect more from the coach. I'm not sure what he's supposed to do with a team like that.
I don't know
it's
whether...
going to lose its captain as well.
Yeah, but sort of referencing the need to try and win in social games of recreational sport. Again, I know their words and I know he's in a no-win situation. I understand all that. I just hope he's got the required help around him, because it's not easy with what he's been faced with.
You would have been the type to win at table tennis as well at the Cats.
But it's either in you or not. You don't fabricate reasons to.
I think he's just speaking to the lack of standards there and what he's going to try and change in whatever they do.
High standards here on Footy Classified and high standards on Good Call, Bad Call. It's next. Jimmy Bartell, we begin with you. Staying focused in the final round is a challenge for all players when Mad Monday is calling. Good call, bad call?
This might be a good call from you, Sam. Our man with the high hair, Bailey Fritsch, trying to really focus in here on Max Gawn. I think the batteries might have gone out there on Bailey. At least he was making eye contact. That's what you want, isn't it, Lloydy?
Hey, Sam, it's not only the players who zone out, though, towards the end of a long season. Good call, bad call.
No, this is a good call from you, Damo. This is very much eyes peeled call. Bottom right of your screen, the man with the headphones and the leather jacket. I mean, I know it's North Melbourne playing, but try to stay awake, sir.
It's hard watching North, Sam.
Hey, Damo, a great record on the field is no guarantee of a great record off it. Good call, bad call?
It's a really good call, Lloydo, because you're referring to Jimmy Bartell's tipping in round 24.
This is nasty.
Jimmy, you let yourself down in this. You got 2 out of the 9 games completed. You also let us by extension down on this panel.
Yeah,
you've got to be better, mate.
I apologise to my family, the sponsors, everyone involved. I was going for the win.
Norm Smith and Brownlow's, bad luck, mate. Just get some tips.
Last round, I was going for the win. Lloydy, people need to grieve or deal with their losses in their own way. Good call, bad call?
Bad call, Jimmy, and I don't think this is your view either on this one. I've got no issues with Braden Maynard picking up disappointed Melbourne players on the ground. So some may say leave him alone if that's how they want to act, but he's just a good person helping out some of these Melbourne players who are going through a bit of disappointment.
Damo, to you, it's surprising the Eagles' final pitch to Oscar Allen fell flat. Good call, bad call?
It's a really bad call, because by this stage of this offer of a lolly to Oscar Allen by Jaden Hunt, Oscar was saying no to everything at the West Coast Eagles. And so sad was Jaden at that rejection that he's managed to retire today too, Sam. So he's retired as well.
Sam, journos have to wear a lot of different hats in the modern media landscape. Good call, bad call?
It's a good call, Jimmy, but it shouldn't be a good call. If you're working, you know, you're after a story and you're going up against the other networks, what are you doing holding other people's microphones? 7 and 10, Fox and 9, they're not mates.
Diversity.
Don't hold microphones. Throw them in the river. Let them get their own yard.
Jimmy, the footy TV wars are calming down as the season draws to a close. Good call, bad call?
This might be a bad call from you, strange bad call from you, Lloydy. You don't make many. Let's take a listen to David King pre-game for Fox Footy.
And we made a commitment, James, to be here every Thursday night.
We do.
And we're here. 2 big clubs. And I'll tell you what, you tell the Carlton fans that tonight's not important.
Yeah, just letting them know they're up and about. I like it. A bit of banter between the networks. It's great.
And Lloydo, to bring it home, networks need to keep their talent comfortable to get the best out of them. Good call, bad call.
It's a good call by you, Dano, but we reckon Buck's got too comfortable. Have a look at the button setup that he's gone with pre-game. So he's just got a few too many buttons down, and we reckon at half-time someone's got to him and said, Bucks, I reckon that's a bit too risque. So do the top button up. And it's not late night operating.
But it's in Queensland. You surely...
We don't miss anything here, Sam.
I can't believe you've got after Butts with the buttons. That is unbelievable. I tell you what, the cook would want to be good after that. It's next. Don't go anywhere. Footy Classified.
I'm often asked, who's the most important person in a football club? Is it a coach, CEO, list boss, fitness boss, the captain? Well, Errol Goulden was put to the test over the weekend when he went up after the game and he had a decision to make. There's the a coterie bloke, there's the incoming CEO, there's the current, or the CEO about to start, there's Harley, there's Pavlich, and there's a coach. Pav's ready to go, thinking it's him, and he got absolutely burnt. TJ, the biggest TJ I've ever seen there. And he had to just hang in there and put the hand back in the pocket. So I think it is the coach. We found our answer, as Errol Goulden has told us.
You got after Buxton, now you've got after Pav.
Yeah.
And threw TJ in there.
I feel like that might get a run on Sunday, Damo.
I think we might do that.
Tuesday Footy Classified is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Join Eddie and the team. That show on Tuesdays is absolutely flying. You won't want to miss it tomorrow night. Speaking of absolutely flying, how about players tonight? We've got Jesse Motlop, we've got Bo McCreary, we've got Archie Roberts, and it's all with your host, Felix von Hoff. Thanks for joining us on Footy Classified. Make sure you watch tomorrow night the Sunday Footy Show and Players. It starts now. Have a great night.